Hey, whilst I was having a nap, I might have missed the actual question that you asked. Indeed. Yes. How do we live with the environment? Now, you started off very well, sir, by saying that each one of us have had a whole series of changes over generations, etc. And we've come to this particular point. And now, from here onwards, what next? My opinion is this, that the only future that we all have is that we learn to respect each other's culture and each other as a person. Once you have got over that big hurdle, it's a huge burden, because as soon as we see somebody else, we characterize that person, we stereotype that person. He's white, he's black, he looks like he's a Christian. The gentleman with the red cap there, it looks as though he might be a Jew. I think somebody here who's speaking in front of us is a Quaker. Somebody else is a Hindu. Once we stop categorizing people and then finding out what the other person is and who he is, the biggest hurdle is over. And then we're talking a person, a human being to another human being. And that's the environment we need to create.
I guess if you're talking about the physical environment, as in nature and what's around us, that that's one of the things I worked for 7 years as a youth worker. And so for me, the natural thing I go to is to say that we should be instilling a sense of value and a sense of ownership in young people in their environment. And it's not just a resource to be used, but it is something to be preserved. And I think that if you actually look at particularly up and coming young people, that it is something that young people actually do quite well. You're looking at today at the various statistics that I have, that young people are choosing companies that they work for based on their environmental record. Young people are voting for the people that they could represent, not just people, but the environment as well. And seeing that as something more than just outside of themselves, but part of the natural order, that they are part of this ecosystem and not just. I do think the flip side of that is that adults are in power, and adults are the ones making decisions. And so it is, again, it's one of those paradigms. We talked about cultural shift, and I think we're now realizing that even if you doubt man-made climate change, so that you still are aware that man makes impact on the environment, and we should be managing how that works. And that we should be recognizing that whatever we do, we should leave it in a better state than how we found it. I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, just very briefly on the idea of preserving our environment and how this idea of people from different cultures can play a role in that. I think what we often fail to realize is there are so many people from very different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, who have come here having suffered a lot of environmental damage. Think about people from the Pacific Islands who are almost losing their homes because of natural disaster, erosion, sea level rise. Our own indigenous people who have a connection to the land that has been taken from them. If we embrace cultural diversity and give those people a chance to be part of decision making, whether it's environmental advocacy or policy making, our approach to the way we preserve our environment could be different because we are embracing the fact that we've got people who have a lived experience that involves environmental damage and disaster. So yeah, that's what your question basically highlights a really great example of why we should be embracing cultural diversity and mixed cultures in all aspects of our policy decision making.
I don't know what to add necessarily to the observations that have already been made, but perhaps one thing I would say is that maybe some of the divisions and differences that you're talking about in approach to a universal thing like the environment are actually perhaps less to do with culture in a racial sense and more to do with culture in a built environment sense. It's simply that I think most Australians, including most immigrants in Australia, live in an urban environment where there's much less contact with the broader Australian ecology, if you like. We don't have as many people from diverse cultural backgrounds living in rural and regional areas, so people don't necessarily come up close to both the natural environment and also not necessarily up close to the worst of environmental degradation. In terms of us all working together, I don't think that's too difficult a thing to achieve. I think if you have a vision for the future, and that future is about the future of the children and the future of your community, then those are things that everybody wants the best for, and they're in fact really great unifying forces that go well and beyond culture.
Samarine, do you have anything you want to add? We'll go to the next question.
So whenever I think about environmental problems, I never really think about it as a national problem. I think about it in global terms, because if you keep the environment pristine in one country and it's like totally degraded in another, at the end of the day it's one planet, so it affects every other country. So I think that it's more of like a global problem rather than just national one. That's why everyone needs to think about other people living in other places as well.
Thank you everyone for those responses. Next question, you have